Jimmy Tippet, nice guy, man, gentleman, very, very down. So I met him about 1978 at the Thomas and Beckett through Eddie Richardson. I met Eddie Richardson down a pub down the bottom of my road, and we was just talking, and fighting come up, and he said to me, "Right, go down to Beckett." And I told Jimmy Tippet, "You're coming down." So I went down to see him and got into young license fighting. Jimmy Tippet, good fighter. He used to muck about. He had a thing with Jimmy Tippet. He always used to muck about and bang it in the bottom and come over the top and all that game, you know. And sometimes he went over the top a little bit and he could hurt you, you know what I mean? I say, "Jim, stop it, mate, you're hurting me, you know what I mean? Stop it now. You know, I don't want to be hurt, you know, leave off." And he would laugh about it and then do the same thing again. And he used to be a good manager to me. I mean, with Jimmy, I had quite a lot of fights really, you know, and I didn't lose many. I didn't lose very many. And I really, really respected him as a man, yeah, as a gentleman, and the amount of people he knew. I mean, Eddie Richardson had great words to talk about Jimmy Tippet, mate. His brother Charlie, nice guy Charlie, used to go around the house with his two little white dogs, sit there with Charlie. I kept very quiet. I didn't really know them, Charlie or Eddie, really. But Jimmy knew them really well. He worked for them, you know, for enforcer work. He was an enforcer, used to get money, what money owed, and bits and pieces of people taking liberties, and Jimmy go and see him and sort it out. That's how me and Jimmy really got together as such, yeah, because I was unlicensed fighter with him and I can handle myself. I got into the enforcer work with him, you know, picking up money, getting money, this, that and the other. And that really is part of my life. That's really what happened in my life, yeah, being with people, being an enforcer. But Jimmy, you never mucked about with him, mate. I mean, I've been on bits of work with him. Where he's stabbed someone with a chisel right through his shoulder. I mean, he don't muck about, you know what I mean? He's got that wicked way about him, and he's also got that nice way about him. But when he turns, he can be really, really dangerous. I've been with him, you know, when he's pulled out a handgun and stuck a handgun into someone, you know, and you know, you even petrified yourself that he's going to pull the trigger. You know, you see the difference in his face, you know. And also I've seen him with the rose cutters, you know, rose cutters. I've seen him just get people's hands and just snip off a bit of their fingers, snip off the end of their finger, and warn them every time, you know, we want something of you and you're not going to give it us. Every time I ask you for something you don't know, I'm going to snip a bit more and snip a bit more. And in the end of the day, you'll have no hand. So, you know, the best thing to do really is to, from the first, I'll tell you what I'm doing now. I'm going to show you what it is. He snipped the end of the finger off with a pair of rose cutters, you know, and the guy then knew that what he said, he meant. And that was Jimmy Tippet, you know, and he was well respected by so many people. Really, I mean, the people that I met, you know, people that I even forget their names, but other people, because we was always around them, I remember their names. Like Gypsy Tom, you know, Gypsy Tom could have a right fight, but had a lot of respect for Jim. Loads of respect, but the guy can have a real fight, and but he had so much respect for Jimmy Tippet, yeah. And then there was, well, one of the greatest ones was Paul Moriarty. Paul Moriarty was a gentleman. Paul Moriarty loved Jim, and Paul Moriarty is in razors, longer Fridays and things like that, yeah. He was a proper man, Paul Moriarty, and he could really have it, but he respected Jimmy Tippet so much. Another one that you know, that really, this guy really should have put Jimmy Tippet in the book. Should have talked more about Jimmy Tippet than what he ever did, because what he learned a lot from Jimmy Tippet. That was Brian Cox, the director, you know, film producer, actor. I mean, you know, I met Brian Cox with Jimmy Tippet years and years ago. You know, same time, 78, 79. And Brian Cox loved Jim. He still bowed me, Brian Cox, you know, but he was a nice guy, Brian Cox. And Jimmy Tippet, him and Jimmy Tippet was always together. Boxing shows, he gave me a name that I ain't going to say, but he gave me a name that stayed with me all through my boxing when I was doing the unlicensed fighting. You know, and one day it's going to come out, you know. I love to see Brian Cox because Brian Cox was the one that gave me a call for cats, walking down to the ring. Yeah, Brian Cox, he was Jimmy Tippet's best mate. They was always together, them two. And when Brian Cox wrote a book, he never mentioned Jimmy Tippet. I don't know why, because Jimmy Tippet was maybe because he's such a gangster, such a nasty person, you know. So not a nasty person, i.e. you didn't like him. A nasty person, if you upset him, you was in trouble, you know. And that was the sort of person he was. I mean, you know, other people, Davey Old, Johnny Old, the two brothers, two twins, nice guys, man. They're nice guys, but love Jimmy Tippet. What is it, Terry Coombs, Terry Sharp, love Jimmy Tippet. There's so many big George, I forget his name, big scars down his face. You know, young Jimmy knows them more than I do. But proper dangerous people, but respected Jimmy Tippet more so. They respected him, mate. And he was not a tall guy, 5'9", 5'8", but bang, mate, he could just put punches together. Every time he hit you hard, you know. And as I said, on a thing with Jimmy Tippet about his life, when Jimmy Tippet hit a bag, you know, he hit through the bag. The bag wasn't flying around, he just hit through it. His punches went right through the bag, boom, power. The bag never moved, crash, right through the bag. And he was like, phenomenal banger for a man of his size. He should have been 22, 23 stone for that power he had. He had some power, man. You know, and I really loved him, man. I respected him so much. And his son is in a way like his dad in lots of ways, and there again he's not like his dad in lots of ways, yeah. But I got big respect for his son. I met his son a couple of times when I come out, and you know, around the Mayfair and all that around there. He's always been in the Mayfair, young Jimmy, having dinners and things like that with young ladies and different people. You know, some good. The young boy knew lots of people, lots of guys, man, for his dad. You know, his dad. I can't blame young Jimmy the way he talks about his dad. You know, 24/7 he talks about his dad. With Jimmy, he always talks about his dad because his dad was his life. You know, his dad made young Jimmy who he is today. You know what I mean? Because you got a father like that, big respect. Everybody respects the son. You know, and yeah, I've got lots of respect for young Jimmy. But the dad, well, man, he was a different breed. And I'm only sorry that I left Lewisham. I mean, people like Joe Pyle, Roy Shaw's, Lenny McLean's, all them fighters respected Jimmy Tippet. They all knew him, mate. Everybody knew him. You know, there's no one that I've ever been round, company, that don't know Jimmy Tippet. Especially from South East London, all around over there, the North Londoners and all that. They all knew Jimmy Tippet for the man he was. You know, everybody respected this man. You know, I loved him to death, mate. And I was only sorry that I couldn't be around when he died. I was gutted. Anyway, just about Jimmy Tippet, and I love him, mate. I always will love him. Nice one.